What's up guys, and welcome to my first video here on Abster RB, Abster Riftbound. So for anyone who don't know me, I'm a One Piece content creator that mostly focus on competitive content with a bit of fun, So I've been doing streams where I play tournaments, I've been doing videos like guides, etc. I've been doing like almost everything when it comes to One Piece content creation. And now this is my Riftbound channel. So first a little bit about me. I've been playing card games since I was 11 years old, so that's 14 years. I've been playing Yu-Gi-Oh, Body Fight, Vanguard, Pokemon. I tried Vice Wars. I play One Piece of course, and right now I'm also going to play Riftbound. And I maybe also miss some card games like Hearthstone, Legends of Runeterra. I played almost all of them. So for this video series that I'm going to start off this channel with, I am going to go through every legend in this game. I'm going to talk a little bit about, the playstyle, how the champion works. We're gonna go through the deck, and then just talk a little bit about the leader. And I imagine that like a lot of you people in the beginning here are coming from my One Piece community, so this could be opportunity for some of you to get to know the game and learn the decks. And first of all, I played a lot of games now with Kaisa. I would say that I still have things to learn, of course, as we always have to do, but I feel like I kind of got a grip on the leader and how it wants to play and how it works. So let's start with the legend here. So the legend, of course, Kaisa, Daughter of the Void, one of my favorite champions from League of Legends. Usually I play ADC, and Kaisa is one of my favorite champs, so it fits right into it. So the colors are red and blue. So the red is like almost in One Piece, you could say, and in a lot of other card games, it's a lot about aggression, stats, getting out on board. So most of the aggro leaders in this game are most likely going to land in the red spot. There's some easy examples. For example, orange are also a kind of aggressive color, but I would say that red is like aggression, board, damage spells, etc. And then we are playing with blue, which is more of like the bluish color from Magic, but it's not completely that, but it's about like drawing cards. It also goes for tempo. It has a lot of spell synergies. So yeah, it's like a really good color too. So combined, this is essentially like a spell tempo deck. So what the leader does is reaction. Whenever you are going to play a spell that costs power, you can tap the leader and then take away the power cost by 1. That makes a lot of spells in your deck free, and makes some of your 2, 3, and 4 cost spells cost less in power wise, like the power you go minus. So let's go over the 3 stages here. Oh, this list is from the China Nationals, the biggest tournament in China recently, where Kaisa won, so I am going to use this deck as a template. So for the battlefields, we are playing Guru of the God Willow, the Dreaming Tree, and Star-Tipped Peak. Both Grove and the Willow and Star-Tipped Peak are holding battlefields, which means that when you hold them, if you have a creature or a character, when your opponent passes turns, you untaps, then you get the effect on them. Grove the Widow makes you draw a card, and Star-Tipped Peak make you channel a Rune Exhausted. These are really good for Kaisa as a leader. I also gonna say there's also some other battlefields that you could run for Kaisa, but this was from this deck profile. And because you have a lot of early creatures and ways to protect them, buff them, and keep them alive, both of these gives you great rewards, because you are most likely going to be able to untap with your characters. But on the other hand, you also have to put it in the right way. I think that both Grow of the God Willow and Star-Tipped Peak are as best when you go first, because you are going to get the first character on board and then you can play it. And then you can either play another creature, you can play Kaisa, or you can keep your runes open so that you are able to protect that character. But if you start one of these stages, your opponent goes first, they might be able to take advantage of it. So be careful when you are choosing this stage. Depending on matchup, I think that the Dreaming Tree is really good when you know that you are going second, or maybe even if you start the game, you could start with the Dreaming Tree. But I'm still also getting into battlefield selection, of course, but I would say that I really will like in these lineups for the battlefields. And then for the main deck here, we are playing 2 Kaisa Survivor. It has Accelerate, which means that it essentially has Rush, but to accelerate in this game you have to pay 1 rune and then go -1 rune. In this case you go -1 and then, or you tap 1 and then you go minus a red, and then the Kaisa gets Accelerate, Rush, Haste, whatever you like to call it in what card game you are coming from. And yeah, it's a 4/4, and when I conquer, draw 1. So it is not the most flashy effect, but I can tell you that this effect is insanely broken for a 4-drop. So first and for all, Accelerate, Charge, Rush, Haste, whatever keyword you are talking about are always incredibly broken in every game. Because you are able to just play the character and then you are going to be able to get the goal with it directly. In this case, Kaisa going to be able to attack a battlefield, either score a point directly or kill a character, and then also you're going to get the effect when I conquer, draw 1. One of the strong parts about Kaisa 2 is that it's a 4-drop, and I would probably say that it's the best 4-drop in the game right now. And the broken thing in this deck is that you are going to be able to start with Kaisa as your champion beside your legend, so you essentially always start with Kaisa in your hand, so you always have a play for your 5 or 4 rune turn if there's nothing better you want to play. And also not having any power cost makes it really good, because you are not going to push back your tempo with the powers. You are going to get up to higher runes, or I was close to saying dons, but runes later on in the day. You're going to be able to play your much more powerful cards. And then from there we are playing 3 Stupefy. It's a 1-cost reaction, so it's essentially a counter spell, can be used at any time, even before spells and abilities resolve. It says gives a unit -1 this turn to a minimum of 1, and you get to draw a card. So card cycling in card games are always good to see more cards, and then this having a beneficial effect also is really good. It also synergizes with cards like Riftbound Student that you are playing in your deck, but yeah, mostly I'm going to use it to get a favorable stat in combat and draw a card. In some cases you're just going to use it to get that cycle off and draw a card, or you could even target your own character under Dreaming Tree to get to draw 2 cards. So it's a really good card for the deck. Then we are playing 3 Cleave. It is action, play on your turn or in showdowns. You can play it on your turn or when a character showdown is happening. Give a unit Assault 3 this turn, which means that it has +3 when attacking. This card also synergizes really well with all the pieces in this deck. For example, Kaisa Survivor, Ravenbloom Student, Darius, even with the Watcher or any of the chosen characters. And it's also 1-cost spell which does not go minus, which makes it really good for the deck. Also, having a minus for Kaisa wouldn't matter that much, because Kaisa can always tap, but in some turns you want to play multiple spells like a Cleave and Hextech Ray, and then it's thankful that we don't have to go minus any runes at all. And then we have 3 Hextech Ray. I think this is like, if you look at other card games, you could call it the Lightning Bolt from Magic. So it's action, play on your turn or in showdown, so you can't just use this anytime. It has to happen in the right criteria, as we talked about before. And it deals 3 damage to a unit at the battlefield. I think this card is like one of the best cards, or if not the best early game card you can use, because a lot of the 2-drops in the game right now are really vulnerable to this card. And just by having to pay 1 to clear your opponent's tempo from the first turn is super nice. And I think a lot of red decks would want to play this card, but going -1 in power in the early game is not that optimal for a lot of decks, which makes it so that it fits really well in Kaisa. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that this card was red, because Victor is blue and yellow. So maybe it should have had another name than Hextech Ray, and being one of Victor's abilities, of course. And then we are playing 3 Retreat. It's a reaction, so you can play it anytime. I'm not going to go over everything too much, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about the cards. So what it says is return a friendly unit to its owner's hand. Its owner channels 1 rune exhausted. So this card on surface level, when I started playing game, I thought this card was not that good. What, you are denying yourself tempo by playing this, yada yada yada. But it is actually insanely good for the deck. You have a lot of great targets for this, like Kaisa, like the Watcher. But you can also pick up one of the other cards if you are losing a favorite trade. And the good part about this card is that it's hand neutral. So if you, for example, your opponent is trying to kill one of your creatures, either by combat or by a effect, you can just bounce it back to hand, and then you also get the added benefit of getting to ramp one rune, which is insanely good for just one. I think the second, or like the other ramp card for one rune is two. So it costs two, sorry, and this only costs one. And also, if you have the Dreaming Tree up, for example, and you target your own creature, you're also going to get to draw cards. So I think this card is incredibly strong for the deck, but also giving you value by bouncing back your characters like Kaisa, Darius, and Constantine Watcher to use for later. And then we are playing one of the Pauti Poro. I think this card is just decent. It's not super good, but it's not bad. I think it's mainly here in the deck, and when I've been playing it, it has been nice to have another 2-drop. In this game right now, as it is, I think that one of the most important things for most decks is to get a unit on board on turn 1, because that means that you can start to pressure battlefield directly, especially with these whole battlefields that are in the game. And as I've heard and figured, I think 7 2-drops are the best number, because that gives you really good odds to have it in your starting hand, because technically you can look to up to 6 cards, which makes it so that the math sticks out really good. And Pautipor is just a good card against a lot of matchup, because it's hard to get rid of because of that deflect ability. And deflect means that if your opponent targets this with a ability or spell, they have to go -1 rune, and it's incredibly strong in the early game. And then we are playing 3 of the Ravenbloom Student, also a really good card in this spell tempo, spell slinger-esque deck. So when you play a spell, give me +1 this turn. I don't think I have to explain this card that much. We play a lot of powerful small spells in the Stupefy, Cleave, Retreat, Hex the Grey, even Falling Star. Which makes it so that we easily can pump the stats of the Ravenbloom Student. And it only takes you to cast 1 spell, and this one becomes a 2/3, which is for this card game right now, like, it's overstated. And for Kaisa, you are often always going to be able to play a spell during your opponent's turn, or during your turn if you want to push with the student, and it also a 2-drop and fills the role perfectly. Another good thing is, for example, with Stupefy, so if your opponent attacks with a 3, you can Stupefy your opponent's card, it goes to 2, and then your Ravenbloom Student goes to 3, so it actually swings the combat completely. But yeah, it's a 2-drop and one of the best in the games right now, and synergizes really well with the deck. And then for the next card, which also is, I would say, one of the main reasons to play this deck in my opinion, it's the Falling Star. It's probably the best early game removal card in the game, costing only 2 and being able to deal 3 damage to 2 units. And another reason why it's so strong in Kaisa is because in all of the other red decks you have to go -2 power to play it, which makes it a lot harder to fit in during your early turns, because you want to get up to the runes to play more powerful cards and get more options. But in Kaisa you can just tap your leader and only pay 1 power to get like an insane good tempo swing. So I would say that this, together with having Kaisa and the Watcher, is the biggest reason to play this deck. But yeah, Falling Star a incredibly broken removal, and it also can deal 3 damage to units everywhere. For example, Hex the Ray can only target units on the battlefield, but Falling Stars get the reach of the whole board. Then for next card we play 3 of the Watchful Sentry. I think this is also a incredible 2-drop. It's a 2/1 with Death Knell, draw 1. So essentially its job is just to hopefully get out on the board on the early turn, take a battlefield, get a point, start to get the pressure, and then your opponent are going to swing into it, and then you're just going to draw a card. So it fills the spot of a 2-drop, and it replaces itself, and yeah, it kind of does the job. So I'm really enjoying this card, and I think it's probably going to be good in this game for a long time. And then for the next card we have 3 of the Lecturing Yordles. This is the first 3-drop in the deck, which makes it a lot stronger when you are going second. So it's a 3/2 tank, so it has to take the damage first in combat. So if your opponent attacks with a 7 and you have a Watcher and the Yordle on your field, your opponent has to assign 2 of the damage to the Yordle first before they assign it to the Watcher, which makes it so that the Watcher will survive even though your opponent has 7 power. And when you play me, draw a card. So I think this card is just decent also. I would imagine this card being cut in the future from a lot of these decks when the card pool expands and there's a lot of better cards. But in set 1, I think it's really important with this, like getting a tempo. In the early game, Election Yordle does that perfectly, which means that when you're going first, you have 7 cards that you can drop on turn 1, and when you're going second, you go up to 10, which makes it sorry, even higher. So yeah, Election Yordle, just a decent card for the deck. It replaces itself and gets tempo board, and Kaisa as a tempo deck wants to win the game sooner than later. Election Yordle synergizes really well with what the deck wants to do. And for the next card we have Noxus Hopeful, which I saw at the beginning of the game in China. I don't think that many people play this card in Kaisa, because at a surface level I think a lot of people wanted to play Kaisa more as a control deck, and before it became tempo, and I think Noxus Hopeful is a really strong card. So it's a 4/4, but if you have played a card before, during the turn it becomes a 2 cost, which actually is incredible. That means that you can, for example, on 4 you can play a 2-drop together with Noxus Hopeful and get a 4-stat minion that early in the game, which is really strong. Or for example, if you go second, you can play the Stupefy on one of your opponent's characters to draw 1, and then you can play Noxus Hopeful instead of sticking one of your 2-drops. And also in later turns, it's really easy to fit in, because you are going to play a lot of cards, or like more than 1 card every turn in a deck like this, which always makes it easy to fit in a 4/4. So it's also just a generically strong card, and probably is going to be playable in this game for a long time in these more red aggressive decks, but I don't know how long it will stay in Kaisa. And for the next card we have Darius Trifarian. Darius, the menace of the top lane, the ghost flash, kill you level 1. Love it. So it's a 5/5 minus 1 red power, which you have to go -1. But at the points when you're playing Darius in this deck, you are not going to care that much about going -1. And the effect is when you play a second card in a turn, you give me +2 this turn and red me. And that's also a incredibly strong effect for what Kaisa wants to accomplish, because as I said, in your turns you have all of these cheap cards, which makes it really easy to activate Darius. But the best combo with him is to cleave him. So you play the Darius, you cleave him, he stands, he becomes a 10, and then you can almost contest any battlefield. Maybe not like these crazy ones where like Yi has characters and spells and things like that, but you are going to be able to contest a lot of battlefields in a lot of stages in the game with this Darius. And also a tip, keep in mind that if you play something like Election Yordle or Stupefy, and you draw into the Darius, or you want to play a spell before you cast the Darius, you can actually cast him as the second card during your turn, because he will see himself as a card cast, so he's going to stand himself directly. And also, you can do some funny combos. If Darius is holding a battlefield, you can put him down to the base, recall him, and then you can play 2 cards, you can stand him, and you can push to the other battlefield. So he's like a multi-purpose character and synergizes really well with these decks that can play a lot of cards and play with him. So for the next card we have Thousand-Tailed Watcher. In my opinion, this is the best card in the game right now, and the reason why blue is such a strong color. What it does is accelerate, so you pay 1, and instead in Kaisa's case you had to go minus a red, but in Watcher's case you go minus a blue. To give him accelerate, rush, haste, whatever keyword you prefer to call it, he gets accelerate. And when you play him, give enemy units -3 this turn, a minimum of 1. So you are basically decreasing your entire opponent's board, base, everywhere with -3. And like, it's just insane. I don't think there's any card that comes close to the power level this card has, because it easily can clear up whole battlefields. You can combo it together with other cards to push 2 battlefields, and it makes it so that your opponent, when they see blue, always have to respect it. So they can never really overcommit to a battlefield, because once they do, you can just watcher them and win the game. So not only it has a crazy effect, but it actually also dents the game in an incredibly impactful way, because your opponent always have to play around it. And if your opponent do not decide to extend the battlefields, you can use your interaction cards and push through easier than playing the watcher. And maybe if you don't have it, they still have to respect and play around it, which benefits you, because it will be easier to take the battlefields and control the game. So yeah, Watcher is the best card in the game. I don't think I have to explain it more. Try it out if you haven't. It's amazing. And then for the next card here, we have Icathian Rain, the Kaisa Q, one of my favorite abilities in the game. So do this 6 times. Deal 2 damage to a unit. So this is also a really strong effect in Kaisa. As Kaisa is a board tempo deck, your opponent will have a hard time to really amass this big board. So they are probably always going to be around that 12 might value, which makes so that the Icathian Rain can board clear. But you can also take care of like 2 threats, you can take care of 1 big threat, you can take care of a lot of small threats. It's just generally really good in this deck. And technically there's only -2 because you just have your leader to decrease it. But I've seen a lot of lists now playing 2. I've seen some people play 1, board 1, etc. I think it's up to how the meta is looking and like how the rest of the list is. But yeah, Icathian Rain, it's a crazy strong card to control the board. And then for the next card we have Time Warp. And yeah, it probably does what you think when you hear the word Time Warp in a spell. It costs 10, -4. In this case, Kaisa -3 only, which comes up in a lot of spots. And what you do is you take another turn. And I don't think I need to explain to you guys why taking another turn is incredibly broken in a card game. So the main matchups that Time Warp is good against is against the slower decks of the game, like your Master Yi's, etc. Aurora decks, for example. And the reason why is because if you're playing as a faster deck, you are most likely going to spend more power by casting Falling Stars, Hextech Rays, Icathian Rains, the Watchers, Darius faster, and it will be a lot harder to get up to that 10 runes, and when you're in a spot where you can actually win with Time Warp. But into these slower matchups where you can focus more on building up the board, building the points, and being more aggressive, then Time Warp becomes an incredible threat. So for example, if both battlefields are empty or like your opponent is tapped out and you have a way to take control of both and you're on 4 point, you can move 2 units up, get to 6, play Time Warp, then you can pass, and then you can go to 8 point and win in the game from there, which is incredibly strong. And another case to do it is if you can only take control of 1 battlefield when you're at 6 points, you go to 7, and then after that you can Time Warp and then you go from 7 to 8. But there's also another case where you can win off Time Warp, whereas if you are on 5, and then you go up to 6 when you take control of one of the battlefields, then you play the Time Warp, you hold that battlefield, you get to untap, you get to play another turn, and because we only go -3 with this one, we'll go back to 9, so we essentially only lose 1 rune to play another turn, and then from there we could play something like a Watcher and just take control of the opponent's other battlefield, because most likely they are not going to have too many resources to combat a push with Watcher and multiple other threats. So it's an incredibly strong card in the deck. I think right now I'm only playing 1 in the main deck and 1 in the side deck, because like our meta is still evolving here in the West, and like the cards have been a little bit harder to pick up, you know, so there's less Yi running around, for example, like these lower decks. So this was it for the main deck that they decided to run in China, that got the first place. And then for the sideboard, talking a little bit about it, I'm a big fan of card games with sideboards. Now I've been playing One Piece for a long time, and I think it's perfectly fine as a best of 1 game. Preferably it will be best of 2 or best of 3, I meant. with the side deck, but I think that would take too long time to play, because like in a best of one game, there's surprisingly the amount of games that actually also goes into time. So if you look at sideboard, we are siding 2 smokescreen here. I'm actually playing 2 smokescreen in main right now and 1 inside, because I think it's incredibly strong in, for example, the mirror, into the more tempo matchups, and like decks that you want to fight board with more aggressively. But I think it's perfectly fine to side 2. What it does, it's reaction 2, -1 power, but we play Kaisa, so in most cases we don't have to care about this cost. Give a unit -4 this turn to a minimum of 1. And something that's really cool with smokescreen is that you, for example, if you're playing against a set, you can actually void seeker the set when they swing with a 8 if they don't use showstopper. And then if the set takes the damage, goes down to 4 health, but it has 8 might, you can actually play the smokescreen, decrease the might to 4, and the damage of Void Seeker still is on the card, so that will actually kill it. So together with other damage spell, it actually also becomes a removal spell to get rid of bigger threats. And then here we are siding 2 Void Seeker. I'm maining 1 right now, and I'm having 1 in the sideboard. So it's almost like smokescreen, but not. It's action, 3 with rune power. As you know, we play Kaisa. We don't really care about this as much, but some turns we play multiple ones, and then we will go minus. But you deal 4 damage to a unit at a battlefield and you get to draw 1. So this is an incredibly strong card in like the tempo mirrors and playing against the more fast and aggressive decks, because it's for free. You get to kill almost anything that their deck is running, and you also get to replace itself by a new card. So you essentially go +1 and you are denying your opponent the point. So I think Void Seeker is a really strong card overall. And then for next card we are playing the Thermo Beam, and the reason why is because it's the most efficient and best way to kill gear for Kaisa. Now with this limited card pool, I think almost every color has a way to kill a gear. I think the most efficient one is either the yellow salvage, where you pop a gear and draw 1 for 2, or I forgot what it's called, but the purple one that's for 1, both player kills a gear. So this is mainly here for the Aurora decks. I don't think there's any other big threatening gear in the game right now that is relevant or that you want to spend a card to get rid of. But Thermo Beam is really nice because you just get to kill Aurora, and if your opponent have multiple Auroras on board, you can actually take out both of them. So I think this card is mandatory inside. I like number 2, you could also play 1, but I really like the Thermo Beam overall, and I think this card is just going to get better and better. As we get new gears. We saw in the new set Spirit Forge, it's gonna be a lot of items who are counted as gears. So I think Thermo Beam is also going to scale the longer the game goes and we get more cards, and eventually I think we'll get like completely gear decks where you just play out of gears, and that's like the win condition. And then we play 1 Progress Day. I haven't tested with this card too much, but for 6 and 1 power you get to draw 4. Drawing cards are good. I'd imagine you want to use this into decks where you have the time to play it and not get threatened too much by almost skipping a turn, paying 6. So I'd assume it's a little bit better against the slower decks, but I feel like Kaisa is already so good against slower decks. So in my opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of Progress Day, but as I said, I haven't tested it quite enough yet. But it's definitely a really strong card overall in the game. Like in a comparison is Hearthstone, where you had Sprint in Rogue, where you just draw 7 cards, and you also played in the Tempo Rogue deck, which means that sometimes you skip the turn just to refill the hand. So it might come up in more spots than I think, but I'm not the biggest fan of the number 1 here either on the sideboard, because you're playing a 1-off in a 40 card deck, and then you're like, okay, then you want this card, but could it been like the third smokescreen in this case, or maybe a second Mega Mech, or like anything else than just the draw 4, especially when it's a 1-off. And then for last card we are playing Mega Mech. It's just a 7/8 vanilla, so it's a insanely high stated card for the cost compared to everything else in this game, and you don't have to go minus power. So if you play some curve on 8, you're going to go to 10 or 9 next turn, which opens up even more plays, and then you get to stick this big huge threat on the board. So this card is mainly better against the more like tempo decks. Like for example, in the mirror match, it's insanely good. Into Ari, it's really good. I would say it's kind of good into set 2. It's good into a lot of these like faster decks, because if you play it in the mirror match, sure, your opponent are going to be able to use removal spells to get rid of it. But for example, if your opponent are casting a Falling Star on it and a Hextech Ray on it, they're going to trade 2 cards, go -2 power, because Kaisa will tap for 1, so they leave 2. If it's on a battlefield, of course, otherwise they can't Hextech Ray. But that makes it so that it trades 2 for 1. It's efficient in mana-wise for your opponent, but they are losing a card. And then you can, for example, chain it together with a retreat to get it back to hand, and then your opponent essentially wasted 2 cards and you got rid of nothing. Your mech left the board, but you might be able to play it next turn. So it is completely fine. And also, take into account to it, it's probably going to swing on anything or score a point, so it will give additional value, but also being a threat to your opponent. And also, if your opponent decides to swing with a big character, you can easily just chain it together with like a Void Seeker, Smoke Screen, a Hextech Ray, or like 1 or more Stupefies to decrease something, so you also get to trade with it for something big. So you can kill a unit, then you can trade something big or cards for it, so it's actually really demanding. And I think the best case for it is in the mirror match, because the stat line is really good and it's really annoying to get rid of. And this was it for like the deck profile. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the stages and the stage strategy. Keep in mind, this is my first video on the Riftbound channel, so this video is like a pilot, you could say. I just wanted to talk about a deck that I've been playing a lot now and I think is really nice. But when you are deck building in Riftbound and like setting it up, everything is about the battlefields, because the battlefields will set the rules for the game, how you like will interact with your opponent, how you will attack, what strategy you are going to do. So it's incredibly important to set up a plan for the battlefields. And I think the best way to do it is you take one of the stages that you like. In 99% of the games always are going to pick game 1, because you don't know if you get to decide to go first or if you go second. And in this case for Kaisa, we are playing the Dreaming Tree, which will most likely always be the first one we play. And then from there, the other 2 stages are going to be one for going second and one that's better going first. And the reason why is because if we win game 1, then we are going to go second game 2, most likely, because this format right now is centered around going first. It's like beneficial for almost all decks, because you get to play that first drop and you get to like take the tempo overall in the game. So you need a battlefield for going second, because your opponent is most likely going to take first if they get to decide. And in this list, I assume Star-tipped Peak is the battlefield of choice when you hold you may channel 1 rune. In my list right now, I'm playing Reverse Row, which means that when you are defending, you can recall one of your units to base. So like they avoid combat completely. It's really good in Kaisa going second, because it sets up the curve really well. I could talk a little bit more about it in another video about Kaisa. But in this case, we're playing Star-tipped Peak, and then we are playing our Growth, the God Willow, as our going first battlefield. It's actually really good in Kaisa, and like I think I haven't seen it super much. So, and this won like one of the biggest tournaments in China, so it's cool to see. So when you hold, you get to draw 1. So that means that you're going to play one of your 2 drops in your Ravenblue Student, Pouty Poro, or Watchful Sentry, and then you're going to hold the grow, and then you are going to focus on trying to get the whole points and get to draw more cards and out-tempting your opponent. In my list right now, I'm playing Targon's Peak, which means that when you conquer a battlefield, you get to stand 2 runes at the end of your turn. That makes it so that, for example, if you open a 2-drop, you can play the 2-drop, and then next turn you can play your Kaisa from your champion zone, and then you can take over the battlefield and you get to stand 2 runes at the end of your turn to keep interaction up for when your opponent are going to contest the battlefield or are going to contest other ones. We, for example, can do a Hextech Ray, Stupefy, or we can even retreat one of our characters if our opponent decides to waste resources on trying to kill the Kaisa. Or maybe one of the units we have to get the ramp and go faster into late game. Yes, so this was it for this video, first one on this channel. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, you know, the usual, and I'm really excited for this Riftbound journey. Also, please comment down below what legend you want me to cover next. The goal is to do all 16. We will see if I touch on some of these more niche ones like Garen, but it would be fun to do a video about it. But I think there's not that much content of Garen, to be fair, online that you can see, so you, like, just look over the ability, etc. Yeah, thank you guys, and see you in the next one.